same-day pickup.
That's GoodRx, the no-nonsense way. Save time and money on prescriptions.
Get to goodrx.com/weight loss. GoodRx is not insurance.
Straight Talk presents the math of more. Here's how it works. When you say yes to more with Straight Talk, you're left with more for all the other good stuff. So getting an unlimited plan starting at just $25 a month equals more savings for your family's weekend adventures. And with a network covered by Verizon, you can share more from wherever you go. It's simple math, really. More equals more with Straight Talk. Available at straighttalk.com and Walmart. Taxes and fees apply. The $25 plan requires a compatible unlocked device and a new line of service. Additional terms apply.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see increasing cloud cover here for today with a high into the lower 20s. We'll have winds out of the southwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for some snow here late, about an inch possible to accumulate with cloudy skies. Temperatures holding rather steady. Wednesday, chance for snow early, cloudy skies, a high around 30 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 3 above.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us this morning on this January cold 20th day of 2026. I love the texts that I get from you guys. They make me chuckle, and I have to pay attention. So I talk about this oftentimes, and we have a great bench of leaders. And I talk about this in terms of what our state folks are doing. With us this morning is a gentleman who has definitely leaned into the conversation and is someone that is one of those guys that just recognizes that we are up for a fight, and he's one that's up for it. Serves as a Pennsylvania state representative for the 181st District and also vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. I'm talking about Malcolm Kenyatta. Good morning, Representative, and welcome to Chew's Views on WCPT.
Good morning. Happy to be with you.
You too. I mean, my. What can I say about Malcolm Kenyatta? This is a person, y'all, that is just you've made North Philly proud, I guess you could say. Born in North Philly, in North Philadelphia, born and raised. But thank you so much for being with us this morning, Representative. And just take a moment and just kind of reintroduce yourself to many people who may not be fully aware of you throughout the country, and let them know kind of, what you've been working on as of late.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much. And I always say my entry into politics is real simple. I grew up in a working poor family, and I was pissed off about it, okay? I wanted to understand genuinely, how could it be that my, both of my parents, worked their hearts out. And yet we just never seem to get ahead. And we're always in that spot that a lot of families feel, where everything just feels tenuous all the time. And, long story short, both of my parents passed before I was 27. And after my mom passed, I decided to get involved in politics to try to change the trajectory of where things were going in my district here in North Philly. In 2022, I ran for the U.S. Senate against John Fetterman in that primary. And then 24 was the Democratic nominee for statewide office, Auditor General. And after that election, what was clear to me is that Democrats spent too much time placating the big donors that fund too many folks' campaigns and the corporations that they run and operate. And then B, too little time investing in, supporting, building out the bench as you referenced, and completely ignoring certain communities. Either we're ignoring a community because they always have voted for the Democrats, so why do we need to go back and try to earn their votes again? Or ignoring communities because those communities haven't really voted for Democrats that often, so it's not a smart investment to spend time trying to build that support. And I think both of those approaches are wrong, and I think we have a responsibility to spend every single day talking about how we're going to make life better for working people and working families, and also how we're going to stand up to this guy in the White House who has lost his mind. And I don't say that as a euphemism. I really think he has lost his mind.
Representative Kenyatta, the thing that I just love what you just said, because yes, and this is, I love what you just said, but I also love what is the subtlety about how you said it. And we need to have more of us be this way right now, unapologetically speaking the truth that you see and speaking what you're to the experience that you have, and that we all have. And we have to get, I'll say get back to, or certainly we have to get to a place where we look at it and go, the sky is blue, it's not purple. No pun intended. The sky.
That's right.
Sorry, y'all. The sky is blue. It's not, gray today, or the sun is out. It's not. We have to just say it, because we've lost a lot of, and I say this so many times, Representative, we've lost a lot of ground and territory socially and politically and economically by not speaking to things and saying, no, that's not the truth. This is the truth over here, and there's no variance between, we got to speak to those things. But you just said something a moment ago about what we missed, what we can be doing better, and such and such. And I want to ask you this question. I just, you've been really hard-lined into making Pennsylvania blue again. And in that conversation, I want to throw you two things. One, making Pennsylvania blue again and what that means, and sort of your approach, but also, how do we get those 89 million voters on a national level? And I know that we have the trickle down of state elections and all that, and that's super important to me. But how do we do that, in your opinion? I know that's a big, complicated thing. And tell us what making Pennsylvania blue again means to you.
Yeah, I think, ultimately, I say this even as somebody who travels all around the country, but Pennsylvania, in so many ways, reflects the country as a whole. A number of years ago, 538 did a review where they looked at every state in our Commonwealth from a geographic perspective, from a racial, economic perspective, religious affiliation, and found that Pennsylvania was most aligned with the broader demographics of the country and the broader sort of political affiliation of the country. And so for me, if we can crack the code in Pennsylvania, and by crack the code, I mean crack the code of recruiting people to run for office who've not spent their entire life trying to move up the ladder, but have actually spent their entire lives thinking about their neighbors, and who see political office as what it is, a tool to make life better for the people that I think we should care about. And it's the folks who are waking up right now, listening to you, getting ready to go to work, not the folks who get all of their wealth from, interest from their
investment portfolio,
from the investments that they have.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I think
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not necessarily. Absolutely. Not absolutely. But I think too often there's so many people, and I think about it when I first decided to run for office on the recruitment side of this. I said to myself and to people who were encouraging me to run, well, there's no way somebody like, me could ever be in office, when the reality is we need more people who are saying that to actually be the people in office. And I think that a big part of our responsibility and a big part of our opportunity in turning Pennsylvania and turning the country more blue or more competitive, depending on where you are, is getting candidates who never expected to run to step up and tell their stories about their real lives and about what government should be doing for them. The second thing we have to do is really get people back engaged in the political process, and that starts with getting people registered to vote. One of the biggest mistakes of the party that we've made over the decades was we walked away from partisan voter registration. Mm-hmm. And just handed it off to C3 and C4 organizations, good organizations who are doing good stuff. But I want to be very clear. I want people to get registered as Democrats, and right. I want us to do the persuasion conversations about why people should join our party that's not just centered around a candidate, but that's centered around our values. And I'm proud that just last week, the Democratic Party nationally just rolled out a new initiative called When We Count, which is the largest partisan voter registration program run by the Democratic Party in the history of the Democratic Party. And so really proud of that. And the final thing I want to say is it is about the policy and about the economy and about our ability to be clear about what we stand for in this moment. And what we stand for in this moment has to be for the people who, like me, were raised to believe that if you just went to school and did everything right, you could buy that house one day. That is out of reach for almost everybody in my generation, and they can barely afford the damn rent. This crazy idea that if you're sick, you can go to the doctor and afford the prescription. That is no longer a reality, and the big, awful bill has made that even more out of reach already. 1.6 million people have decided they're just not going to have health care this year because of the loss of the Obamacare subsidies, and everybody says that's going to get worse. And then the final thing I'll say is we have to be in a position where we're reforming the system that make it more likely that good people want to run, and more likely that people don't look at their government and say, this is so distasteful, I don't want anything to do with it. And a part of how we do that is to get the big money out of politics that has corroded what politics does or doesn't do and who we do or don't fight for. And, at the state level, we don't get to change Citizens United, but I've led the charge in Pennsylvania where we have the wild, wild west of campaign finance to try to change that. And I think when we do those things, get new people to run, get people engaged in the process, focus on the stuff that actually is about working people for real. I think we can not just change the sort of electoral outcome, but we can actually have a government that is not only responsible for gastrointestinal discomfort and can actually make our lives better in the ways that we know we need.
One of the things, Malcolm, that I have to speak to is in this year that we're now in the midterm season, and we know that we had successes in November, and we've had other successes on many state levels, in state offices and state legislatures, is that I don't think this is the year that we quote unquote trash talk our own party to the extent that, because listen, the Republicans are going to do that anyhow. We know that. Talk about being partisan for a moment. They're really good at that. They're very good at that, and we don't need to have their talking points be our talking points. I think that we have to draw a line in the sand, and as a vice chair, this is the thing that I think a lot of people ask: what is it that the DNC, and I use that in quotes, if you will, is doing to alter and change and redirect, have a stronger, bigger message? And I don't want to miss the opportunity, since I am talking with you, and I wanted to talk more because people come to me and they say, Richard, what you're saying is powerful, and I get it, and I'm with you, and we're going to fight. But what is it that we have to have as a more salient, cogent, and simple national message to get those 89 million people who say that they didn't vote because the Democrats were turned them off, so to speak? I don't believe that, but I have to hear that that's what people are saying. What is it going to take? Because we can't keep cutting our own wrists and ankles going after each other. And I see too many times, Representative, that Democrats go after each other and not enough collectively after the folks that are causing the real harm on a local level, on a state, and a national level. I want us to raise our ire against the Republicans. I want us to be partisan. So that's why I like what you said. I want us to be partisan. I want us to be proud to say we're coming after you. What is it that's coming from the DNC that people can say, that's what I'm looking for. I'm jumping on board. I'm ready to fight.
You know, I love so much of what you said, and I just focus in on this part. If we're gonna grow our party, it's not about not being self-reflective. I think Democrats are self-reflective and self-effacing, like, constantly. Nobody wants to join a pity party.
Right.
Nobody's interested. I mean, if you've ever been, had a party promoter come up to you in college or otherwise and say to you, hey, listen, there's going to be this party. The DJ sucks. The drinks are watered down and all of the lights are on all over the place. Please come to this party. Nobody's coming to that.
Yeah.
So we have to be in a position where, first and foremost, it's not that we are flawless, but that first and foremost, we're proud about what this party has done for this country and are committed to doing the hard work of making this party meet its highest ideals. I want to be very clear, like, life was not no crystal stair, for me, but when I look over my life, I only had health care because of a program called CHIP that Democrats fought for. Food was on our table many a night only because of food stamps, which Democrats fought for. And I didn't always, love where we were living, but we had somewhere to go because Democrats had this belief that we ought to do something about affordable housing. So I think we have to do two things maybe three things at one time. And I don't think it's hard to do all these things at one time. We have to, remember what this party has done to create and build the social safety net. And we ought to have a little bit of pride about what this party has done. The second thing we have to do is to be clear-eyed about how we have allowed, in some instances, big money and the corporate elite to come in and dictate what we do next. And we have to take back the reins and the controls of our party, which has a strong legacy and history. And then we have to chart a path forward for what's next. And I think for what's next is pretty simple. We have to ask the wealthiest people in this country to actually pay their fair share, to get their hands off of the driving wheel and the steering wheel of every single aspect of public policy, and to communicate, not just with our words, but if we're lucky enough to be given the opportunity to serve at any level, to communicate with our actions, that our focus is laser and that it is on making life better for working people and working families. And for me, I think every family wants to know that you can have one good job backed up by a union, not 2 and 3 and 4 jobs, that you can go to the doctor, as I mentioned, that you can retire with dignity and decency, and that we as a country and as neighbors treat each other with dignity and respect. And it's all of those things that, A, we can only make possible if we elect more Democrats, and B, we can only continue to do if we actually validate people's trust and faith in us by doing what the heck we're saying we're going to do. And let me say this last thing quickly. One of the things that I hope we've learned from the travesty of the Trump administration is that big change is possible. Now, granted, Donald Trump is able to do, I'm using air quotes, do a lot because Donald Trump is a lawless thug who breaks the law. And, turns out Democrats actually believe in the rule of law and all these other things, so we're not breaking the law. However, I do think sometimes we've been too tepid in trying to solve people's problems. And I think that if given the opportunity again, political capital is not something you keep in your pocket that you save, for later. If given the authority to make people's lives better, if given the political will to make people's lives better, we better walk in with a level of aggression on that point, with the same level of commitment to building stuff up as this guy's had to tearing stuff down.
Yeah, without a doubt. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we're talking with Pennsylvania Representative and Vice Chair of the DNC, Malcolm Kenyatta. So I know this has been used many times with you, Brother Malcolm. Thanks for
That's right.
but listen, Representative Kenyatta, I got to just one of my listeners sent me this text, and I just want to say the three words: blow our horn. And I put that in the context of the pride and who we are as Democrats. I think we have for far too long we've gone around sort of, to your point, tepid is a great word. I use mealy mouth way of approaching what we've done. I said, and again, I'm not trying to do this revisionist, what Democrats should have done, garbage, because it's a waste of time. Let's go forward. As we go forward, we need to speak about all that we've done that's been so powerful for this country. I talked about Dr. King and civil rights movement and activists from a different perspective and how it's uplifted the country rather than taking stuff from white dudes who feel like they were forsaken because of the Civil Rights Amendment and laws behind that. Speak about all the great things that we've done. And if there is a thing that we can sort of draw back just a little bit with regard to to President Biden's administration, to say, look at all the great things that he and Vice President Harris got done. As we go forward, we have to have that same sort of momentum and energy. We have to blow our horn. We have to make the party the place to be. And literally, the party is the Democratic Party, the place to be. Like you gave us the illustration of getting ready to go to a party. If it's going to be a dud, why would you go? You'd be better off staying at home watching television. So we need to make our party exciting and vibrant. And some of that comes with age, chronological. Some of it comes with ideas. But I think that the blend of age, ideas, and experience is a way to pull more people into the mix. And we need to be willing to cut the throats, I don't mean this literally, but the political throats of the Republicans who are standing behind this dude right now and not stepping up and using the power that they have. If there's a party that's not using their power on a federal level, it's the Republicans in the House of Representatives and the Senate, because they're not doing anything to stop this guy. So I believe it is about blowing our horn. It is about laundry listing what we've done, what we've stood for. If it were not for this policy, we wouldn't have this benefit. And more of that has to be our conversation. I can tell you this. I know this in my heart. There are regular, everyday folks that the DNC on a national level and on a state level is trying to reach. I think that a simple thing to do is ask them to join the effort. Many people, Representative Kenyatta, and I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, they're looking for someone to ask them to get involved. I ask people every day, find something to do. Don't sit back and be upset and disenfranchised and all that. So what I would suggest is that when you guys are sitting in those meetings and you're saying, what is it that we need to do? I'm telling you this from people who listen to my show all across the country. They want to get involved. I promise you that. So reach out to people in a way that says, please join us. We need your help. With your energy and your experiences, we can make change. I'm telling you, Brother Kenyatta, it's a simple thing, but it's one of the things that people across the country are asking for. They're asking to be asked, if that makes any sense. They're asking to be asked to the party. Does that make any sense?
No, that makes 100% sense, and I think that's a part of, what I was saying earlier about showing up places, right? And showing up to the people who voted for us time and time again, communities that are, blue as the day is long, but also showing up in areas where, there's work to do. There are people who don't know what we stand for. And that's the value of getting people to actually raise their hand and run for office. Because I'll just say this, in 2024, there were 20,000 uncontested races across the country. Of those uncontested races, 80% were uncontested by Republicans, only 20% by Democrats.
Wow.
So not from a population perspective, but from a geographical perspective, a majority of what people hear about Democrats doesn't come from Democrats. It comes from Republicans.
That's right.
Because there's no damn Democrat running. And so if we don't have a Democrat running for mayor, showing how we would make communities safer, then you have Republicans go out and say what we stand for. If you don't have Democrats running for school board, showing what we want to do for education and have fully funded public schools, then you know what? You're not gonna have it. You're gonna have Moms for Liberty people taking over and talking about what we believe and making crap up. And the same is true on so many other policy areas. And so I think that there's just so much opportunity for us, and we recognize that it starts with getting people registered to vote. It starts with supporting candidates when they step up to run, and it starts with people being able to tell the difference between us and the Republican Party, because we take our marching orders from them, not from the big corporate donors. And I think that people should be proud of that. Just in this last year, the Democratic Party has won more elections in an off year than we've ever won in the history of the Democratic Party. In the history of this party, 92% of the elections that were had, special and otherwise, Democrats won or overperformed. Think about what that says about where this country is and about people who are stepping up. And they're stepping up because they saw what this guy said he was going to do.
And what he's not
and now
delivering
they're seeing what he's actually done. They've cut our health care. They've hollowed out our education department. They've taken away all of the dollars that were supposed to be going to invest in our infrastructure, fix our perennially broken roads and bridges, and they've redirected that money to stuffing it in the pockets of Trump and his friends, and then also to giving ICE the largest budget of all of our law enforcement agencies combined, and are sending them out as Trump's private military force to terrorize our communities. And in some horrific instances, like we saw with Renee Good and so many others whose names we don't know yet, they have actually murdered in our name, using our money that should have been used to send somebody to the damn doctor. But instead, they're using it to terrorize our neighbors and our neighborhoods.
If we want to make our cities better, Representative, we could take that $170 billion and divide it by the top 20 cities population-wise, red or blue, in the country. And look at how many cities would have improved and the lives of the people there would be better. So
that's right.
Malcolm Kenyatta, representative in Pennsylvania and vice chair of the DNC. Put it on your calendar. We're going to have you back because people want to hear from you. They want to know.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
They really do. I promise you that, because people they're just looking for a way to get involved and looking for a way to change. And I think it's going to take the voices like yours that are willing to say we have to be proud about what we're doing, and this is the party to come to. Over here is where you want to hang out. The music's bumping and the food is good. So
that's right. That's right. That's right.
All right, man. How can folks find you? How can folks find you real quick before we wrap up?
Yeah, so it's at Malcolm Kenyatta on everything. 2 L's in Malcolm, 2 T's in Kenyatta. And, we look forward to staying in touch. But I do want to just reiterate what I mentioned before about the When We Count fellowship that we started to get people registered to vote. And if people go to democrats.org/whenwecount, you can actually be get a paid job getting your neighbors registered to vote. So you can learn more about When We Count just right on the Democrats website.
Perfect, man. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Be safe this week, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Be well. Bye now.
Take care. Stay warm, brother.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, Dev, let's hit a quick commercial. 773-763-9278 is a number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
WCPT Replay.
I am joined once again by David Neer. He is the publisher of The Down Ballot.
The polling of the Democratic Party, the favorability of the Democratic Party, obviously is in the dumps. But the reason why is because Democratic voters are unhappy with the Democratic Party. Republicans are always going to give the Democratic Party a bad rating. But the really interesting thing is that when the choice is between someone you're pissed at for not doing better, in other words, Democratic voters' views of the Democratic Party, and the guys wrecking the country, you're going to still go with the Democrats, even if you're not particularly feeling that warm about them. 2026 is going to be a referendum in the biggest possible way on the GOP and Trump. And I think the important thing for Democrats to do is just keep the focus on Republicans and Trump.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Earn an accredited MBA in as few as 16 months for about $21K at University of Maryland Global Campus. Explore 10 specializations, including finance, HR, cyber technology, and more. Plus, showcase the value of your MBA with a comprehensive learner record and digitally demonstrate in-demand skills and credentials to employers. No application fee if you apply by February 11th. Learn more at umgc.edu. Certified to operate in Virginia by Chev.
WCPT 820 will be hosting a candidate forum for the 3 leading candidates for Illinois' open United States Senate seat in the Democratic primary on February 6th.
Please join us at the Plumbers Hall at 1340 West Washington in Chicago, or listen to the live broadcast.
Representative Raja Krishnamurthy, Representative Robin Kelly, and Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton will be discussing their stances on the issues and making their case for your vote.
WCPT hosts Patty Vasquez, Richard Chu, and of course Jonas Esposito will be moderating the forum.
To attend in person, go to heartlandsignal.com/WCPT820 and register. We'll have limited seats available, so please register early.
Meet the leading Senate Democratic candidates at a free WCPT Live Candidate Forum at Plumbers Union Hall, Local 130 on Washington Street in Chicago, Friday, February 6th.
The forum starts at 1 p.m. and is sponsored by Plumbers Union Local 130.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and newnordicusa.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. President Trump is headed to Davos, Switzerland on the anniversary of his inauguration. He'll attend the World Economic Forum, where he's expected to touch on issues like housing affordability in the U.S. and Greenland. At the forum in Davos, Chinese Vice Premier Hu Lifan warned that tariff wars pose serious risks to global economic growth. Trump has announced a 10% import tax starting in February on goods from 8 nations that have rallied around Denmark and Greenland. Speaking to the Associated Press, Swedish Finance Minister Elisabeth Eventesen says Trump is using the threat of tariffs to blackmail the European Union so he can take over Greenland.
I think it's sad and totally absurd that we have an American president who's blackmailing the rest of us, trying to get a piece of land or buy it through threats. It's a new low, so to speak.
Meanwhile, Swedish Defense Minister Pal Johnson says Greenland's European backers are considering extending their military presence in the high north to help guarantee security in the Arctic region. Russia is also weighing in on the situation. The country's foreign minister condemned Denmark's control of Greenland, saying their control is rooted in a colonial past. U.S. futures fell sharply and European markets shed more than 1% on tensions driven by the Trump administration's new tariff threats. In a separate territorial dispute, Trump is criticizing a deal between Britain and Mauritius to settle the future of the Chagos Islands, the contested Indian Ocean archipelago that is home to a strategic U.S. military base. Trump said on social media that a deal to transfer sovereignty of the islands from the UK to Mauritius is an act of great stupidity. More stories at apnews.com. This is AP News. AP correspondent Ben Thomas reports a big winter storm has been sweeping across the Midwest.
It was white out. You could barely see it.
Fueled by the Great Lakes, snow blanketed Michigan Monday, triggering a massive pileup on a highway southwest of Grand Rapids. Pedro Mata Jr. had been driving a plow truck.
It was a little scary just listening to everything, just the bangs and the booms behind you.
More than 100 vehicles colliding. Jeff Westfeld with Grand Valley Towing.
Full-blown accidents to winch outs, jackknife semis.
As the blizzard ebbed, Mata says he saw some trucks jackknifed, others swerving to avoid more collisions.
At that point, I just veered off to the left side of the median and chose to go over the ditch instead of colliding with any of the trucks, and was more worried about being hit from behind.
Michigan State Police reported numerous injuries, but no deaths.
I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see increasing cloud cover here for today with a high into the lower 20s. We'll have winds out of the southwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for some snow here late, about an inch possible to accumulate with cloudy skies. Temperatures holding rather steady. Wednesday, chance for snow early, cloudy skies, a high around 30 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 3 above.
Take your driving to the next level in a brand new Porsche from the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse and test drive our extensive selection, like the 2026 Porsche Macan. Right now, lease the 2026 Macan for only $949 a month for 39 months. Discover performance like no other when you visit the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. 8,519 due signing for qualified buyers. Excludes tax, title, license, and doc fee. No security deposit required. Expires 2/2/26.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the show, 773-763-9278. Of course, you're listening to Choose Views on WCPT here in Chicago. Great weekend for many of us and not so great for others. But at the end of the day, as I said earlier in the show, Dr. King's legacy is exactly what Bernice King said in that audio clip. It's about building a better country for all. It wasn't just about for someone feeling like the civil rights movement and amendments and laws took away from white men in America. So my next guest may have a couple comments to make about that or observations. And that would be the guy that went from the Tea Party to the Democratic Party, Joe Walsh. Good morning, Joe. Welcome to Choose Views on WCPT.
Hey, Richard, it's always so darn good to be with you, my friend. Thanks.
Yeah, man, you staying warm? Because it's cold as you know what outside in Chicago. I'm assuming you're in Chicago. You might be in South Florida right now. Who knows?
No, actually, I'm in D.C., and it's colder than you know what. And I don't know about you. The older I get, I just can't handle this anymore.
Man, please. Can't do it. I said to my wife, listen, man, I was shoveling, brushing some snow, sweeping some snow yesterday up the back steps, and I was like, man, this is,
Yeah.
That's why it ticks me off that Florida is so jacked up because, in and of itself, Florida's a beautiful state and, and many parts of Texas are beautiful. But, of course, the Southwest is the Southwest and it's gorgeous. But, yeah, it's this is that real weather that we get here in the upper Midwest. So, Joe.
And, it is, Richard, it is a political issue, too, when you think about it. When you look at the last 10, 20, 30 years, people have been moving to those warmer states, and it's been helping my former political party. My new political party's got some issues with their national brand, but they got to figure out how to connect with people who are moving into these warmer states.
I was just talking to Malcolm Kenyatta right before you, and he was saying that one of the things that we have to do, and I've got a statement that I've been making since the beginning of the year. I saved it for the beginning of the year for a reason. This is not the time for Democrats to be cutting our own necks and wrists right now. We can't do that. We can't. We need some fixing. But to revamp and to trash talk ourselves right now is bad. It's bad. It's a bad play.
Completely agree.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we can't embrace what we have to fix. But to have the first thing come out of our mouths, particularly those that are running for office, and this is what Malcolm was saying about being proud. We have to take that conversation first and forward, and we have to be willing to say, here's what the Democratic Party's actually done to help the majority of Americans. By contrast, the Republican Party is trying to take your stuff, and so that's oversimplifying it. But I think we just have to be proud of it. And you wouldn't have made that. You said something to me the first time we talked a few months ago. You said that, and I asked you the question, and I don't know if anybody had asked you the question as to why, and you said shame in terms of your move. Well, we get to be proud of the fact that we can embrace a Mandami and we can embrace a Joe Walsh and everything in between, because at the end of the day, I know that it's about us all winning. A lot of people who are still part of this craziness that you left, I don't think they see it that way. I just don't believe that they do. They don't want to see everybody win.
They don't, and they're still a force. I can't tell your audience enough that my former political party, as bad as things seem right now with Trump and MAGA, and he's a madman who's just tweeting out the weirdest you-know-what every night, we've still got to beat them. Yeah. And Trump won a year and a half ago, and we can't forget that. But I'm of the mind, Richard, and I agree with Malcolm, but I'm of the mind that between now and the midterms, we are all the resistance, because this guy in the White House and my former party, they stand for everything America must not be. I think we resist as hard as we can, and we win the midterms. And then I think going into the 28 election, the Democrats are going to have a good, healthy fight about what are we and what do we stand for, and whoever the standard bearer in 28 is going to kind of carry that. But right now, it's resistance, man.
Yeah, it is. And I think that more and more people who are, if they're paying attention, see, this is just kind of how we're built as a society. We go through the holidays and many people kind of turn off the things that are not holiday related. I mean, it's just, I'm not pointing fingers at any of us. We're left, right, in the middle, and on the sidelines. But people kind of turn it off. But now that we're back, we recognize that we've got to be in sixth gear, driving downhill, and pick up every person. Malcolm talked about registration, keeping voter registration as a big part of the conversation, and making sure that people are registering as Democrats and not sort of this sort of two-party where you can no, we have to register as Democrats, and people have to come out and vote in that manner. And I don't think we've talked. I can't remember, Joe, if we've talked since the November 4th elections, but not forget that was critically important to show. And Malcolm talked about, I think we've won 92% of the elections that have been these off year and off year elections. That's something we have to talk about as a way to keep people, what's the word I'm looking for? Plugged in. Don't you? I mean, what do you?
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I completely agree, my friend. Plugged in. Look, right now, people who oppose what my former party is doing would crawl bare naked across broken glass for miles to vote. And that's what we've seen in all of these special elections. But I got to tell you something. We also got to be really motivated. Maybe I'm saying this because I come from the right and I know what they're cooking up and Trump is cooking up. We've got to believe that there's a chance this guy in the White House is going to try to cancel the midterms. He's going to do everything he can, including putting troops on the streets to intimidate brown and black people from voting. He's going to do everything he can to mess with the midterms. And we've got to be ready to overwhelm that with our enthusiasm.
Well, and listen, when he said, a couple weeks ago, we got to win the midterms, we got to win, because if the Dems take back the House, they're going to impeach me. I mean, there's some things that most of what comes out of his mouth are lies, but he's right. That they know that if they don't win the midterms, that's going to be part of the plan. But bigger than that, I think, to your point about getting people, making sure people, Joe, are aware of the fact that the Republicans are cooking stuff up to alter the midterms is real. And what happened in Minneapolis, I mean, you sent 2,000 troops to a city that's not meant to capture illegal folks. That's meant to cause havoc and create drama and push the envelope enough. Because I've said this for a long time, Joe. It's not going to be a black or brown person that is the one that causes the thing that would allow the administration to say we need to send in federal troops. It's going to be an instigator. It's going to be a person. Do you know what I mean? I'm sharing this with you because we're just being honest. I had this stupid dream a week or so ago, not even a week ago, that it was an instigator that was, it was basically a Manchurian candidate moment. Let's put it that way. Let me just cut to the point. We have a Manchurian candidate moment. It's not one of, quote, us from the Democratic big tent party that we're all part of now, but it's one of them that they basically decide to cast aside, but that's the one that's the tipping point that causes the thing that then says, now we've got problems in blue cities, i.e. blue states. We're going to cancel their ability to have an election be relevant to the national election. That's how
That's his whole plan. Richard, you just nailed down his whole plan, and we all need to know that. That's his plan. It's Stephen Miller's plan. They don't want brown and black people voting. Their entire plan is to incite violence, to create chaos. They're using these ICE thugs to do it. He's going to put troops. He's going to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minneapolis any day and put troops on the streets in Minneapolis. Why? To incite violence, and then he can somehow declare martial law later on this year. But you nailed it. He's the one that's trying to provoke the American people to get violent. And we can't. We have to overwhelm what he's doing peacefully. But I got to tell you, my friend, we're talking about the President of the United States who's openly cheating, and there's going to come a point where we have to engage in civil disobedience as well. I think we're in for a really rocky year because of what he's going to do.
Without a doubt. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with Joe Walsh. Joe, listen, there's a book a couple years ago. You wrote and published a book called F Silence, and we can't say the word. Y'all know what we're talking about, but we might want to say it, but we can't say it. And I think right now that those words are probably so prescient and so important. Is that we have to be willing to, going back to your point about motivating, keeping people plugged in, and those are kind of my words in terms of folks making sure they're in the mix, is that we can't be silent right now. I think part of our superpower, or one of our superpowers, is noise. And the protest and the rallies and being on point when things happen, like what happened to Miss Good in Minneapolis and other places. You're right. The fight has got to be loud. It's got to be noisy. And frankly, to your point in the book, F silence.
We can't. He wants us to be quiet. They want us to be confused. They want us to feel overwhelmed. They want us to be dispirited. Again, Richard, I come from that party, and I got to tell you something. You and I have talked about this before. White Christian nationalism is the most powerful force in my former party. And they're public about it. They're growing in strength, and it's all meant to divide us. They want, the Speaker of the House, they talk about it. They want America to be a white Christian country. That is anathema to what we are. But they lead with, to defeat that, amen, brother. No, we can't be silent. We got to be just focused, really focused.
Joe, let me ask you this question. I get this every now and again that I think is important to talk about. And sometimes people say that when let me back up. I said a moment ago, I don't want us right now as Democrats spending so much time criticizing ourselves. Progressive liberal Democrats, wherever you land in the, not you specifically, Joe, but wherever anyone lands in the designation as what we are, we cannot spend time, for lack of better words, trash talking ourselves. That doesn't mean we don't identify the things that we need to do better. And I get people, and I don't know if this happens to you because you come from the right to now the left, if you will. But when I talk about this, I talk about it from the perspective of, this is an issue, but we can't waste time over criticizing ourselves. And people will say things like, but the Democrats this, the Democrats that. And I'm like, but don't y'all get it? We can walk and chew gum. We can say we have to fix this, but right now to completely be dumping on our party is foolishness.
Oh, man, I wish every Democrat in America just heard what you just said. Look, I've only been a Democrat for 8 months, and it hasn't been easy. It's been a rocky road. I get beat up every day. And look, not every Democrat has welcomed me and given me a big bear hug, and I disagree with Democrats on a lot of policy, and I say exactly what you just said. I believe in my bones that our democracy and the rule of law is teetering. I believe that in my bones. That's why I became a Democrat, because where you and I right now, Richard, stand on what's going on in Gaza or what we should do at the border, all important, not as important as preserving this democracy and the rule of law. And so we are all on the same team right now, focused on that. We can argue about policy later.
After we get back to where we can actually change that.
Amen.
And I think that's one of the challenges right now. People, listen, we know we got stuff that's out there that's a problem and we got to fix. But until we stop this flood, we ain't gonna have a house to hang out in. We have to stop the flood further down the road. Joe, let me ask you this question. This is something that someone just sent to me. So now that you're part of the Democratic Party, and you've been fighting for the things that you know that the Republican Party are trying to take from us and are taking from us, not trying to, in many ways they have. What is it that you're doing differently than you were doing, let's say, a year, 2, 4 years ago? We can go back even further, but just sort of talk a little. And the reason I'm asking the question is that I want to be able to help people. There's a group the gentleman that we have on the show, his name is Rich Logis, and his group is called Leaving MAGA.
Oh, yeah. Great guy.
So one of the things that they've done is they've created sort of this bridge for folks to say, okay, wrong path, I need to change, help me get back. So what is it that you're doing that not is the same as that, but is at least saying to people, listen, I was over here. I was running down this path, and I realized I'm about to run off the cliff. And I stopped. And fortunately, this group of people called Democrats said, listen, man, we'll welcome you in. But what are you doing differently now, Joe, that's salient, that's something people can latch onto and go, all right, I can get with that?
Well, I'm not a jerk. I'm not an a-hole. Back in the old days, I was a political you-know-what. Remember, I left the Republican Party 7 years ago. I left Trump 7.5 years ago. It's been a long time. But because I come from MAGA, like Rich, like Logis, I engage with MAGA people every day. It's kind of my mission. I helped to divide this country. People like me, you and I have talked about this, my friend. People like me helped get Trump elected the first time, and we laid the turf. Right? Mr. Tea Party Joe Walsh, I inflamed people enough that they all jumped on the Trump train. So I got to live with that. So part of what I've been doing the last 7 to 8 years is trying to make up for that, helping to heal the divide, but mostly reaching out every day to Trump supporters to try to get some of them to see the light. And every week I can, not by the thousands, but every week I can help open their eyes. And that's that. In addition to becoming a Democrat and helping the Democrats fight for democracy and the rule of law, I every day try to get my former MAGA supporters and followers to see the light. It's not easy.
No, I know. I know it's not, because imagine. So let's just laugh about this one for a second. This is why I said this in a joking way. You and I need to go on a road tour, because imagine what it's like. And I don't mean this for any pity or any sympathy. I'm just saying I get it. For me to talk to someone that's MAGA as a black dude from Chicago, saying, "Hey, listen, man, you're one of God's children, but you're damn fool. You're wrong." You know, that my approach is no longer with the kid gloves. I've taken them off.
Nope.
I can't, because
tough love. It doesn't be tough love.
It doesn't get us anywhere. It's like, listen, no, you're wrong. And here, not only in my opinion, but here's the facts and the data to back up that your belief, your position, your thoughts are just they're askew with the majority of what our country should be. And oftentimes, Joe, the pushback that I get is what you said earlier about them not giving a damn. They just want the country to be a white Christian, straight white Christian male country.
Yeah.
And so you can't, I mean, there's a part of me, and maybe you feel the same thing, I don't know, but if you do, tip us on how you deal with this, that you can't really get around that. I shouldn't say you can't, but what is it that maybe you use that our listeners can use to try to get around when someone basically says they don't give a damn and that Trump is right about everything and they want this country to be that white Christian country?
There's nothing you can do. Look, I engage with hundreds of them a day. I've been doing it for years. It's exhausting. And most, Richard, are where you are. The only way I'm ever able to get a MAGA guy or gal to see the light is when I put truth in front of them and ultimately they realize they've been lied to about something. And that's generally when they begin to turn. So the advice I give people is just, as you said, you got to be tough, but just keep respectfully putting the truth in front of them. No, Trump didn't win in 2020. Here's why. Boom, boom. No, they weren't eating cats and dogs. Here's why. Boom, boom, boom. But you're not going to change most because these are people who've been fed lies for years, and Trump is their guy who promised to bring back 1954 America, whatever that means to them. And that's a really hard thing to ever change, which is why we got to focus on young people. Trump did a lot better the last go around with young men, white, black, and brown. We got to work them because they're going to be around a lot longer. Most of Trump's supporters are old Fox News people, old white people. They're going to die. But young voters, young men, we got to get to them.
Well, and also to the 57% of white women that, I mean, you talked about this in that dinner party that y'all had, where we had 52, 56, 57, and 16, 20, and 24 that voted for Trump. So that's also a group. I mean, you know, to all my white female listeners out there, don't be ticked off at me for speaking the truth numerically. But, Joe, you can speak to that as well. That's a big, big group, too.
That's a huge, huge group. And I'll tell you what, that group, because I hear from them every day, they don't like what they're seeing every day with heavily armed, masked federal thugs on our streets, abusing people and denying people basic constitutional rights and grabbing brown and black immigrants. White women are having a real hard time with these videos. And that's one of the best things we're all doing is these ICE videos are reaching everybody. I read last week that like 87% of the American people have seen the ICE videos.
Yeah.
So it's moved well beyond just the people who pay attention to politics. And it's having an impact because, and we're seeing it more with white women than white men. White women don't want America to be a cruel. I mean, this is just abject cruelty. So that's having an impact.
And I think, unfortunately, we lost one of our fellow Americans, Renee Good. And she is that demographic. And irrespective of her politics, left, right, or in the middle, that demographic has to pay attention to that and recognize that at a blink of an eye, it could have been them. And that's the part where I'm hoping that our as I'll say, my Caucasian female sisters will step up and say, you know what? Like Joe and Richard said, we may not agree on everything in terms of how we get this resolved, but the first thing we got to do is take back our humanity, our dignity, and our democracy. And I think that
oh man, Richard, that's perfect. That's perfect. And to get them back in 26, we have to tell them, show them what's going on right now is not who we are. Yeah. And then we win in 26. And then before, as you and I said, before 28, then Democrats got to spend more time saying to the white females and everybody else, okay, this is now who we are. because they're going to have a choice again in 28. They knowingly chose a horrible guy in 24. We've got to give them a better choice in 28.
Well, they had one. They just chose to make the bad one. That's just the truth of the matter.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Joe, thanks
agreed.
Thanks for hanging out with us, man. I appreciate you sitting in for a bit. I know we'll talk again in the next few weeks, but stay safe, stay warm, and just keep on doing the work that you're doing. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, man.
Talk to you soon. Bye now. Let's go to a quick break, Devin. 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM, and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Jose and Laura came to Brookfield Tax Planning worried about their taxes. After their free, no-obligation tax reduction review, they discovered they'd been overpaying $8,100 every year for 28 years. That's $227,000 of hard-earned money gone forever. Why? Jose and Laura's financial advisor did nothing to reduce their taxes, and their accountant records history after the year ends when it's too late to use legal, proactive tax reduction strategies for business owners and retirees. 94% of Brookfield's clients discover they've wasted thousands for years due to passive advisors. Brookfield Tax Planning reviews your returns free and can show you how much you're overpaying, how to plan ahead now to stop it. You risk nothing. But this may be the most profitable hour you'll invest all year. Call Brookfield Tax Planning at 708-485-3439 or visit BrookfieldTaxPlanning.com. That's BrookfieldTaxPlanning.com.
This is WCPT telling you how you can shop blue. Are you looking to get that new computer so you can do great things like surf the web, find Heartland Signal, and stream WCPT? Let's look at some computer companies that support the Democratic Party. Lenovo donates $56,000 to the Democratic Party in 2024. That's 89% of their donations. While Hewlett-Packard, or HP, donated $383,000 to the Democratic Party, as well 89% of their donations went to Democrats. Apple donated $4,701,347 to the Democratic Party. Microsoft donated $5,397,633 to Democrats in 2024, while Sony donated $1,268,000 to the Democratic Party in 2024. That was 95% of their donations, everybody. This has been WCPT telling you how you can shop blue.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see increasing cloud cover here for today with a high into the lower 20s. We'll have winds out of the southwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a chance for some snow here late, about an inch possible to accumulate with cloudy skies. Temperatures holding rather steady. Wednesday, chance for snow early, cloudy skies, a high around 30 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 4 above.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Views with Richard Chu.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the show, 773-763-9278. Thanks to Malcolm Kenyatta for being with us earlier in the show, and Joe Walsh as well for just, making it clear that he's putting the work in. That's why I asked the question, and I want to thank Leo from South Carolina for presenting us with that question. And I've always been one to talk to Joe straight up. Like, listen, you made the change from the Tea Party to the Democratic Party. So let's go get some stuff done. And, that's kind of where he is. So I'm happy to have him on. So there you go. I talk about this oftentimes in terms of our local politics, whether it be the mayor's race or a state race in legislatures and some of our other races here in the Chicagoland area and anywhere else in the country. I mean, Malcolm Kenyatta is a national voice now because he's a vice chair of the DNC, but he's a state representative in Pennsylvania. So my goal has been to make sure that we're highlighting local elections. But every now and again, we got a national election that takes place. And in Illinois, we're really busy right now. We've got a Senate seat that's open. And you guys know we're going to have the debate next week from Friday 2 weeks from Friday, I should say, on the 6th of February with the 3 candidates. And then we've got these congressional seats that are up for grabs, and one of them is in the 9th District. And one of our candidates that's running in that race is Jeff Cohen, who's hanging out with us this morning in studio. Good morning, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Richard. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, man. We were joking around before we came on about the this past weekend and the weather and how we all are navigating this cold weather in the upper Midwest and parts of the Northeast. But it's part and parcel for where we are in this part of the country. So, we all kind of bundle up and that extra layer and a few extra minutes to warm up the car, even if it's sitting in the garage. It never gets old. But you're in the race, and it's a crowded field, if you will. But I look at that as it's a thing that doesn't get talked about enough when we talk about Democrats, and that is we've got a pretty doggone good bench. And it's people like you that are stepping up and saying, I think I can have an impact. I got a shot. I think I can win this thing. So just take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience and just kind of why you decided to get in the race and what is it that's motivating you at this time to run for this congressional seat.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for having me. We even the candidates have lost track of how many candidates there are. Did
it change overnight? Maybe, I don't know.
No, and people keep saying, well, the field will narrow down. I think people need to remember that there's 14, maybe there's 13 Democrats on the ballot.
Yeah,
plus some Republicans. So there's no, dropping out doesn't really mean your name's going to be there. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, I got into this race because, two things. One is our democracy is in, shambles. I mean, it is very, very difficult right now to say that the country is functioning well because of who we have in the White House and his followers. But the second thing is, I'm an economist. That's what I did for 30 years of my life. And the economy is broken. The family economy is broken. And because that's my, something I know a lot about, I felt like I had to get in. And I think, if we needed candlesticks made and I was a candlestick maker, I'd say, let me get in. But it's about the economy for me. Affordability is the talking point across the whole country. I mean, hell, Donald Trump talks about affordability. But I think it's not a talking point for me because that's my bread and butter.
Yeah, it's not a political. Let me take this and make it part of my political speech. It's just a thing that you've done. And one of the things that there's a couple of things that go through my mind when you say that. One of our guests on the show is a woman named Shaughnessy Naughton, and she runs an organization 314 Forward, and it says we need to have more subject matter experts running for office on all levels. Some of your quote-unquote competitors, if you will, have some certain specific areas, and others do throughout the country. But I agree with her that the more we have smart people in positions of elected office, the better, that aren't just funded by big donor dollars because they like each other or that's the person we can manipulate the easiest. Having a person that gets it. This is not economically smart or scientifically smart if we're talking about, healthcare or talking about technology, as it were. But what is it to that end that when you look at the economy objectively, if you were to take the political whatever off and just look at it and say, these are the 2, 3, 5 things, and I know we don't have all the time to talk about all of them, but you look at it and say, that's why our economy, to your point, is broken. What is it that you see has maybe caused it and keeps it perpetually being broken?
Yeah, good. Sure. Look, I'll give you a very technical economic analysis, which is people don't make enough money and stuff costs too much.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
That is what people tell me, right? When I spoke with a 79-year-old who told me that his retirement plan was working at a call center. And I spoke with a teacher who said, I can't talk to you anymore. I got to go, pick up my Uber shifts to make ends meet. So, those are stories, many go on and on, hundreds, thousands of people telling me things like that. But let me give you a little bit of technical background about why we're where we are. This country has been on a massive productivity ramp up for the last couple of decades, and that's good. We should be happy about that. But the problem is labor's ability, so employees really, their ability to capture that upside has not grown.
Yep.
So there's a big gap. There's a gap between income and your groceries. There's a gap between income and healthcare, and there's a gap between income and housing. And so affordability is not just, happy talk or talking about it. It's making that gap close.
So, all right, this is that, whatever, $10,000 question or $1 million question. Income disparity is that you just labeled it, or laid it out. Income, and you pointed out three things: sustenance, food, housing, and we're not there. And I think back. This pops into my brain, Jeff. I remember back in the early '80s when I had just gotten out of undergrad, that technology, specifically computers, were just like going to the moon in terms of everybody. The computers at offices were a big thing. Now they're personal computers, and how this was all going to make us more efficient and blah, blah, blah. You know the story. And it didn't happen to the extent where income matched the productivity. It just didn't happen. And I think we have to stop shying away from that conversation. And this is where history is important, and lean into the fact that, not from a negative perspective, but from a reality perspective and a database perspective, those promises of change in how we did things, manufacturing things, how we thought about things, it didn't really happen for the masses of people. And candidly, as much as Democrats get blamed for losing touch with the regular person, for 12 years we had Republicans in the White House, the 2 terms of Reagan and then Bush 1. And that's when the biggest falling off the cliff, actually, database took place. But what is it that you see it's going to take for us to reset that so that the income disparities are not there and people can actually look to something to be excited about in your role as a potential member of the House of Representatives?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big
question. I know. I do that. I don't ask.
It's big.
I don't ask gotcha questions, but I do ask big questions.
Hey, look, I appreciate it. Look, I think we got to start. We have to start with, there's the short-term stuff, the medium-term, and the long-term stuff.
Okay.
Short-term stuff is having Democrats like me or others put out tangible economic plans that can probably get bipartisan support. That's the single most important thing, right? Because we may take back the House in 2026, but it's still going to be, you're going to need to get some people on board. And so the economy, tangible things that don't necessarily cost a lot of money yet are where we got to begin. I'll just give you a quick example. 40% of us get our paycheck through small businesses. So that's almost half the country, right? Mm-hmm. And that's true in the 9th for sure. We need a bill that will create profit-sharing pool for employees. Big companies have this, employee stock option plans, things like that, but they're really expensive to set up.
Right.
So we got to give small business a break, probably a tax break, to put that in place. And that's like putting productivity and income into people's pockets. It'll have the same effect as raising the minimum wage.
Yeah.
So
keep going.
So that's one. That's short term. And, people can get on board with that. I think even MAGA Republicans could maybe get on board with that because it doesn't really cost anything.
Because many of them are the small businesses.
Exactly.
That go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's not red or blue. That's 40% of everybody. So that's one. And then the second thing is, we cannot forget to invest in the things that will narrow that gap down the road, which is higher education, primary education, child care, health care, things that, they are good investments for us as a country. And so we can't take our eye off the ball because if we don't invest in, say, child care, then you've got a family, a parent, a mother, whatever, that cannot, they can barely make ends meet. They need this. They're putting themselves behind the ball further and further and further. And of course, they're putting their kid, in jeopardy of ever being able to reach that, an opportunity.
Well, and I think that point is well taken. Let me do some business here. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we're talking with candidate for Congress in the 9th Congressional District here in Illinois, Jeff Cohen, economist. So the dude knows a few things. So for 25 years, you've functioned in this space, 25 to 30 years in this space of kind of really knowing the nuance of the numbers and what they do say and what they may not necessarily disclose because how they're created and then how they're presented. But when you talk about child care, what went through my brain, Jeff, and I'm sure this happens to you too. Yeah, so if child care is out of line, and even if that family sees an increase in their compensation, but we've got this drag, this open parachute on them, which is not properly taking care of child care for all of our children, then that still could put us in a situation where that family, where they still have some income disparity. And we could list 10 things where that's the case. So I think it requires more funding of the things that matter, or at least the Republicans, MAGA tries to say matter to everyday folk. It takes funding for those things rather than buying a country Greenland and all the rest that you may be dealing with once you get to Congress if you were to win that seat. So how do we not change the narrative, but really get people to realize we can't waste our resources and time if we're truly trying to take care of these basic income disparity things by fussing around with, something like Greenland.
Yeah, it's interesting. At that point you're so on with that point. It is an enormous waste of resources that we need here. And in a funny way, a friend of mine said this to me yesterday, in a funny way, it kind of makes us Democrats, we should be more isolationist, right? We should be saying, no, we can't help those folks out. And it's weird. Yeah. Weird. I never thought I would say we should be isolationist. This country, it's a world economy and a world we all live in. But we can't waste that kind of resource abroad when we have problems here. And Democrats put in a funny position right now with that. But boy, you're so right. What just a terrible investment. The payoff to that.
Talking about that. I mean, I said this earlier in the show, Jeff. My father used to stay out of other people's business. And Greenland is not our business. We should stay out of their business. They haven't attacked us. They haven't even threatened to attack us. We don't have folks from Greenland immigrating to the United States coming from the northern border. We don't have anything going on. And it, to me, it's once again, it's this sort of let's distract from the things that really should matter to the country. I've said the same thing about ICE. Take that $170 billion and divide them amongst the top 20 cities in America, red or blue or purple, and those cities will do better.
Yeah. I made this argument to folks that ICE is an economic problem too. Why are we wasting all this money? And I think protesting ICE, obviously bringing all the legal weight to bear on that is critical. But I think we should be coupling economic damages with that activity too. When I think people realize just how much money we are spending on ICE, they will get much more upset. I think people on both sides of the aisle. Let me just say one more thing about Greenland, because it's another economic point. Deciding to throw a bunch of tariffs on our allies, on NATO countries, that costs us money because you're destabilizing the European economy. You saw that in the markets today.
Yep.
And that then bites us in
the backside.
Backside too, right? If you need to, get a mortgage, you need to take out a car loan. Everything's 1% higher because of that. It's a direct connection to us in this economy.
And then the other part of it too, and I know you probably see this, it just ticks people off. It just ticks our allies off. They're like, why would we want to hang out with you, U.S., if you're going to do this to us? We can't trust you. We can't believe in a partnership that's really one that's based on fair exchange. I mean, and that's not even putting the numbers into it, but I know you could then say, yes, that sort of emotional part of it, that trust part of it, and then let's add the math to it, which says it doesn't make any mathematical sense to do it.
Right. Trust, you erode trust, you increase risk. Risk comes with a premium. Risk is a number, and we're all paying for that.
Preach. That's exactly what it is. And that's why we need more educated people running stuff, because a lot of times that people try to separate sort of emotion or emotional conversation from numbers and data. But in fact, they lead to something that causes people to do and act differently. And then we have a cost for it. There's a price tag for it.
Right. And I think, look, the collapse of our democracy is probably item number one on everybody's mind, on Democrats' minds for sure, right? But right underneath that are these economic issues, right?
Do you see people that you're talking to, Jeff, that are maybe more on the right or center, maybe moderate Republicans, if you will, whatever that's supposed to mean? Are they hearing your message in terms of, because in your district, it's predominantly a Democratic district. We know that already. But when you encounter someone that may be more center right or further right, and you talk about it from that perspective, like, listen, guys, this is hurting you too. What are some of your exchanges in those conversations?
Well, those folks definitely hear it, and the center Democrats certainly hear it too. What I can't get my mind around is why they would ever cross the line and continue to support, the guy we have in the White House. That's what I don't understand, because this is basic economic logic that, moderates in both parties kind of grasp. And, it's like with the subsidies for health care, the 5 states that were picked up the most people because of the subsidies are Republican states, deep Republican states. And, I feel sad that it's going to take a lot of pain for those people in those places to realize that they've been lied to.
Yeah, I think they know they've been lied to, but I think that the challenge for them is the capacity to acknowledge. And this just doesn't just come from me. And I want to ask you a question about the district. This doesn't just come from me, Jeff, but people who are psychologists, sociologists, and psychiatrists have said that, acknowledging something is the first step, and you know all this. But a lot of people can't acknowledge it publicly or outwardly that they made a mistake. They know it, because I don't believe inherently we're that doggone just stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to use stupid the wrong way, so nobody be upset with me for that. But I just can't believe that. I think that obstinance, pride, and all those other things get into the mix, and people just can't acknowledge that, I made a mistake. And then how do I go in a different direction? Do you encounter any of that when you're talking to people, that you can tell that they know that they made a mistake, but they just can't acknowledge it?
Yeah, I mean, they're hurting, right? They're really hurting, and to tell them you're wrong, people know. I think you're totally right about that. It just takes a while for them to get over. That's very emotional to get over, to realize you've made a bad mistake or you've been lied to. Being lied to is one of the worst feelings, right? It's a terrible feeling. And so I understand why people resist. But, we Democrats have to offer something that also is compelling so that they can flip. And I was listening to your earlier guest, and he's right. It's hard to flip those people.
Yeah. So let me ask you the question about the district. First part of it, at least. What separates you from the crowded field? It's a crowded field. We know that. We can't run from that. But what do you look at and say, this is what makes me different? Not better necessarily, but different, and why it would then be the better choice for the district?
Yeah, great question. Look, there are good people running this district. Some of us become friends.
Right.
I mean, there's a book in there somewhere for somebody to write. It's been a real historic thing. But look, it is the economy. It is my skill set. I know it very well, and so I have. Where I'm really different is that I am bringing the one thing we all know we need, which is expertise in that area, combined with not being a career politician.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I cannot wait if I see the first lobbyist who realizes that I am their worst nightmare. Because, for me, it's service.
Stay away from Jeff, y'all.
I mean, I'm not, I don't need the job, right? I mean, it's service, not salary for me.
Yeah.
And, that's not true for everybody in this race.
No, that would be a good point, a good separator. So this is the other question that I'll ask you that's sort of tied to that. You become the person that wins the seat. So now you're the newly elected representative in the 9th District in Congressional District. You're there. You're in the seat now. And what is it that you're going to be some of the first things you feel you've got to tackle it? You're going to, because I'm of this position, and I've said this to other people that I've talked to that are running for office. Forget about this old, playbook and decorum of the freshman senator or the freshman congressman or woman. No, you've got to hit the ground running. So how are you going to hit the ground running and be ready to say to folks, this is what I bring to the table?
Oh, man, I'm so glad you asked that. Because a lot of people said things like, yeah, you're just going to be in the back seat forever. You're going to have to take your orders. Hell no. I've spent my life working in these things. I've testified in courts. I've worked for the federal government. I worked against the federal government. I have a very strong conviction that I'm going to be talking the minute I land. And I think that the policy proposals for me to make traction are all, like I said, they're all things that I think either don't cost a lot of money first, things we can fix that can get on board so we get some traction and make people's lives better quickly, or they're things I really believe we should be spending money on. And, those are infrastructure, education, healthcare, because, people ask me a lot about the deficit, right? And is it bad? Is debt bad? It's kind of blowing up right now, but there is a good use of debt, right? If we're doing things that our children will say, hey, I'm glad you made that investment, right? You helped get child care coverage for most people, or you got health care coverage, or you made it easier to go to college. Those are good things to take debt on because they're long-term investments. Right. So I'm going to be screaming from the second I land because, like I said, if you don't like me, vote me out in 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years. I don't have that kind of need for the job that I think a lot of people running do.
Yeah, you need to get stuff done. So to that end, going back to something you said, Malcolm said this, Malcolm Kenyatta and Joe Walsh to some extent in terms of today's guest, and I've been saying it for a long time. It's got to, people take it the wrong way, but it's met with good. You got to walk in ready to swing that sledgehammer and be ready to make some noise right out of the gate, because we're no longer, I don't think, in the position where we can tiptoe around things anymore. We have to be willing to come in and take the hit for speaking our mind about what we believe in and what we think is right. And it sounds like you're at least thinking that will be part of your approach.
Absolutely. I think we need people to get in there with expertise on stuff that matters, who are willing to stand, to take the chance, right? Who are not burdened by some kind of career mindset. So you both need the expertise and the freedom to do what it takes. Yeah. Jordan, what was it that Jordan said? You miss every shot you don't take. So I'm paraphrasing. Devin will have to clean that one up for me. But Jeff, it's been great hanging with you. I know this is the first time we've met, but I really appreciate your clarity about what it is you bring to the table and why it's important to your candidacy, your potentially being in that seat, and the folks that would want to see you succeed. So we're fortunate that we've got a great group of people that are running. So kudos to you for jumping in the fight. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Jeff Cohen for Congress, y'all. And thanks for hanging with me this morning and all of our guests. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. And as always, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
Would it be crazy if you packed your bags and left for a week, a month, a year? What if you left for 2 years? What if you were going far away to help in a village on the edge of the Gobi Desert, to teach children and learn a thing or two about yourself? Would that be crazy? Peace Corps. Life is calling. How far will you go?
Step into a world of obsession, seduction, and shocking consequences with Salome at Lyric Opera of Chicago, January 25th through February 14th. With Strauss's electrifying score and a powerhouse cast, this intense one-act thriller will leave you breathless. Experience the drama and danger of Salome live on stage. Tickets at lyricopera.org.
Horwitz and Associates. Cliff Horwitz's grandfather started this family law firm, and he always said, you know what, if we're going to get full justice for our clients, we have to go to trial. Trial, though, can be very time-consuming, and that's why most firms won't go to trial. They just settle for the insurance company's offer. But the Horwitz family spent a century going to trial. They're taking cases to trial now, and they're winning many record-setting verdicts. Cliff Horwitz is a third-generation trial lawyer, getting people the full justice they deserve. Call 312-800-8000 or go to horwitzlaw.com.
Stephanie Miller here. If eating is stressing you out, you're not alone. There's so much confusion around food. One day something's good for you, the next day it's not. No wonder digestion can feel chaotic. What I learned from the Tummy Whisperer is reassuring your body isn't broken, it's communicating. It needs proper guidance. That's why I trust Renee Barish at Digestive Health Solutions as a certified digestive health specialist. Renee works one-to-one, helping people make sense of their symptoms without extremes or overwhelming them. If you've changed your diet and feel the same or worse, if bloating, reflux, constipation, diarrhea, and low energy are running your life, Renee will help you connect the dots. Digestion will calm down, food can feel easy again, and you don't have to figure it all out alone. You've got the Tummy Whisperer. Learn more at thetummywhisperer.com or call Renee at 847-207-2034. One more time, that's 847-207-2034. Let's get you feeling better.
Start off the new year on a healthier note by taking active liver supplements from New Nordic every day. Available online at Amazon or newnordicusa.com or at your local CVS, ShopRite, Meijer Grocery, or Wegmans.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. President Trump is headed to Davos, Switzerland on the anniversary of his inauguration. He'll attend the World Economic Forum, where he's expected to touch on issues like housing affordability in the U.S. and Greenland. At the forum in Davos, Chinese Vice Premier Hu Lifan warned that tariff wars pose serious risks to global economic growth. Trump has announced a 10% import tax starting in February on goods from 8 nations that have rallied around Denmark and Greenland. Speaking to the Associated Press, Swedish Finance Minister Elisabeth Eventesen says Trump is using the threat of tariffs to blackmail the European Union so he can take over Greenland.
I think it's sad and totally absurd that we have an American president who's blackmailing the rest of us, trying to get a piece of land or buy it through threats. It's a new low, so to speak.
Meanwhile, Swedish Defense Minister Pål Jonson says Greenland's European backers are considering extending their military presence in the high north to help guarantee security in the Arctic region. Russia is also weighing in on the situation. The country's foreign minister condemned Denmark's control of Greenland, saying their control is rooted in a colonial past. U.S. futures fell sharply and European markets shed more than 1% on tensions driven by the Trump administration's new tariff threats. In a separate territorial dispute, Trump is criticizing a deal between Britain and Mauritius to settle the future of the Chagos Islands, the contested Indian Ocean archipelago that is home to a strategic U.S. military base. Trump said on social media that a deal to transfer sovereignty of the islands from the UK to Mauritius is an act of great stupidity. More stories at apnews.com. This is AP News. AP correspondent Ben Thomas reports a big winter storm has been sweeping across the Midwest.
It was white out. You could barely see it.
Fueled by the Great Lakes, snow blanketed Michigan Monday, triggering a massive pileup on a highway southwest of Grand Rapids. Pedro Mata Jr. had been driving a plow truck.
It was a little scary just listening to everything, just the bangs and the booms behind you.
More than 100 vehicles colliding. Jeff Westfeld with Grand Valley Towing.
Full-blown accidents to winch outs, jackknife semis.
As the blizzard ebbed, Mata says he saw some trucks jackknifed, others swerving to avoid more collisions.
At that point, I just veered off to the left side of the median and chose to go over the ditch instead of colliding with any of the trucks, and was more worried about being hit from behind.
Michigan State Police reported numerous injuries, but no deaths.
I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com.